That's how we should talk about it, not to say this is tango or not tango. I prefer my pizza without pineapples. That's how I want to eat my pizza. Some people might be like, can't have it without pineapples. Like, yo, John's face during that moment.
I
Can
don't
we show John's face?
know. I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
Improvised,
Let me
completely
finish.
unknown to everybody.
Like, I watched it, I was like, that's the winner, right? Because it was beautiful. It was, to me, looked connected. It was tango. Welcome back to Staying Grounded, podcast about tango. That's John.
I'm John.
I'm Melody.
Amanda.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so we were a little disorganized getting started, but we have something really
A very hot topic.
A hot topic. I'm really excited, which was given to us by a listener in Italy.
Yeah. Well, I was recently in Italy with a group of friends, and we're doing a seminar, and we were there to really like think critically about tango. And the question came up like, what is tango, and like why is it so hard? Can it be standardized like other activities, other dance activities, other sports? And I'm always curious. For me, why do people get so sensitive about it? Sometimes I feel like we take it a little bit. We take ourselves a little bit too seriously sometimes in tango.
Depends who you are, sure. So that's it in a nutshell. What is tango? Why can't we agree on a meaning? Why, like, other arts and sports are standardized? Why?
Have some aspect of standardization to them.
Yeah. So shall we dive in then?
go
Because
for
we
it.
have some tangential questions related to this that kind of sprung out of it. So, all right. I want to say, because this is the one thing that just I've been ruminating on it a little bit, is that I think part of it is that tango is like a giant game of telephone.
Okay.
And if you don't know what the game of telephone is, because I think maybe it's an American thing, I don't know. It's where you have one message and it's whispered in the ear of one person, then they have to relay the message to the next, to the next, to the next, and so on. And what you find is maybe 100 people later, that original message has completely changed, right? And so, and it's not just a verbal, it's a physical game of telephone. I think this is part of it. So as the message is spreading, it is morphing and evolving naturally.
Right.
And then sometimes intentionally when being influenced by other people, right? So that's my first thought here, but I know you have ideas.
No, I mean, look, at its core, tango is a dance.
Yes.
It's a dance that we do, and we do it socially. There's like, it's not unlike any other social dance in the Latin atmosphere. It's something that, you can go to the club and dance tango where there's club, venue that repeatedly hosts tango nights, right? You can maybe do it in a more formal setting, like a ballroom. And then, yes, I think it's also very much tied to a specific like cultural identity of being from Argentina. That's totally respectable as well. And yes, I think because it there are parts of tango that can get very deep and intimate, right? Maybe on a different level than, let's say, even like if you were to dance bachata or kizomba. I think it's a different type of deepness.
Yeah, different.
But at the same time, like, we like to think of ourselves as being more intellectually stimulating. Yes and no. I think we try to make it sound more important than it is. I love tango. Don't get me wrong. I've been dancing tango since I was 19 years old. I am now 34, maybe 35 by the time this podcast airs. And I've done all the Latin dances. I've been part of clubs and groups and organizations that like are very passionate about their mission. But tango is the only place that I've seen people outside of Argentina get so like emotional about like, this is tango and this is not tango. And it's like, I don't know. I think it's a dance and we can make it as deep as we want, and that's okay. But I don't think we have to go so crazy about it. That's my opinion.
But if you look at the ballet world, you have this segmentation. You have different schools of dance. Like my kids did Cicchetti, for example, which stylistically has some very big differences than other schools, right? And they all say that they're right. I'm sure that they all say that they're right. So I think it's that, well, one, we have humans who are going to want to continually evolve something. So, right, there are maestros who intentionally sat down and said, okay, I'm going to study the structure of tango, and maybe we do it this way right now, but what are the possibilities that we haven't discovered, right? And I'm thinking of the three maestros that sat down and did this, and it was the beginning of the evolution of Nuevo, yeah? That they were like, oh, well, we always dance in this close embrace. What if we break the embrace? What if we start changing it? So there's some natural evolution. There's some very intentional evolution that people have said, like, oh no, I'm starting this. And then there's the influence of the music, right? Because in the history of tango, the music was simpler in Old Guard in the very beginning. And by simpler, I mean like the rhythm, you hear it. It's always the rhythm is really a predominant force, right? And to me, it has a very heavy, grounded nature. And they danced one specific way. And then as the music evolved, because orchestras don't want to play the same thing.
They became more complex.
Right? They became more complex. The rhythm picked up. Like we're thinking D'Arienzo. We start to move into this milonguero era where you can move much more quickly, but you're not necessarily going to be moving in these like deep grounded ways, right? Because now we have more complexity, and then it evolves and the rhythm and the melody become a little more detached where the rhythm starts to follow the melody, right? So it gives room to have these like beautiful, stretchy moments. And the dance evolves, right? I'm kind of skipping over Salon because Salon is not my favorite, but
That actually is talking about someone, but
well,
I digress.
I'm going into the end,
Okay.
and then Nuevo, right? And then Tango. Well, we have Piazzolla,
Okay.
which Piazzolla just, from my understanding, and musicians, I don't know, I might get a lot of hate for this, but Piazzolla is very repetitive, right? It like kind of builds on the same type of structure. So if you're dancing to it, you don't want to do the same thing over and over and over. So if you were to dance to something like this, that's just building the same structure, maybe you want to be more dramatic or more intricate, because the dance is what's really going to give variety, right? And then you get into dancing to alternative, dancing to nuevo, dancing to electronica. And electronica, nuevo, and alternative, for me, I think they're a little bit less complex, right? You don't have these 8 layers anymore. You don't have all of these.
The music has fewer different tracks and
Yes.
melodies.
So you're making fewer decisions, but it gives room for this physicality that Nuevo offers, breaking the embrace and having these soltatas and doing these crazy boleos and like all the crazy staccatas. Like you have space for this that I think, to me, like maybe in D'Arienzo, you don't really have space for this, because like if you're really giving deference to the music,
Yeah.
it's not that we're doing this giant back staccata and crazy conchos. So I think this is part of it. Like we have to acknowledge the evolution of the music. We have to acknowledge the way the dance evolved, and then we have to say, okay, then people have their preferences. Maestros who are shaping the culture have their preferences, and so where one might be like, oh, those crazy new people, right? That's not tango, but then the crazy new dancers, nuevo, are going to be like, oh, that's old fashioned, the old milonguero. Not that they don't want to do it, but just that it's evolving in the same way the music evolved. I think this is like an important part of it.
Yes, fully agree. But at the same time, that doesn't change what tango is at the end of the day, right? It's like saying, what is pizza? Like pizza's baked bread with maybe with sauce.
The Italians
Pizza.
are gonna jump
No,
in
absolutely
here.
not. It's dough, sorry, or whatever, right? It's like you've got dough, you've got a sauce, right? At its base, you're gonna add things to it and you bake it in the oven. But and there's different toppings and flavors, of course, but you don't disagree that this is pizza or not pizza for the most part. Like you can say this is better pizza or this is not so good pizza, but for the most part, it has basic ingredients, right? Like I feel like everything you just described are different. I mean, let's think about 2 things. One is like there are certain steps that we do in tango that's unique to tango, right? And you can dance to tango music and not be dancing tango. You can just be like putting things in random order, in random steps, or
Or
just like
dancing
things
the
that are
basic step of salsa, for example. You
right.
could do that. Sure.
Just moving your body doesn't mean you're dancing tango, and you can also dance tango to non-tango music, right? And so there's still something essential to the idea of dancing tango that doesn't change depending on like all these different stylistic and evolutionary like aspects of the dance. I think that's what makes it beautiful, and that's what makes it like, let's say, survive for as long as it has, and makes it so interesting, because there's always this like, if it feels like the evolution of tango happens at a much rapid scale, I think, than some other dances that I've been involved with, at least within my timeline. So it creates a lot of richness and variety, and you can thus have like a wider range of people who are drawn to it, and it's beautiful. But I don't know that it doesn't mean that just because you dance tango to one style versus the other, it's not tango.
That depends who you ask.
But I'm telling you what I think. Like,
okay.
But I like there like so like I said, right? Like there are you can dance tango to tango music and to non-tango music, and I think the baseline is like the form of communication, the type of lead and follow, the type of steps, the way our embrace is, some specific steps that we do in tango that's like not in other dances. Like I think all of those elements make it tango. Certain rhythms that we tend to do that maybe you don't see in other dances, or to that level. So yes, I know people will say, well, I dance tango this way and the way you're dancing tango is not tango. They're wrong. Unless you are doing something completely random, then sure, you can say that's not tango. But just because you dance tango differently doesn't make it not tango. Like,
so I agree with you.
Because otherwise, then what have we been doing from the 30s until now, or the 40s until now, if it's not?
Yes, I agree. I do agree. I think it is all tango. I think where the conversation starts is that there is a school of thought that one thing is tango. And I'm sure that if you showed some people dancing in the 30s, dancing today, even just social dancing, some of them would be like, that's not tango. Right? So I think that's where the conversation comes in, but I think we're all in consensus here that like we acknowledge all of these different evolutions. Yeah. And I think actually that's what gives it's what makes it interesting, is that when or at least when I started, we would have Milonguero teachers and salon teachers and Nuevo teachers coming to DC and teaching workshops. And some people really picked one and they were like, that's my tango. And others...
That's the key word. That's my tango. Like, that's how I prefer to dance tango.
Yes.
Like, that's how we should talk about it. Not to say this is tango or not tango. I prefer my pizza without pineapples. That's how I want to eat my pizza. Some people might be like, can't have it without pineapples. Like, that's my preference, and we can have preferences. I just think what concerns me is how serious people get about this. Like, it's almost like they get so offended. You know, like for instance, I think back to like competitions, and the idea of even being able to judge a couple dancing tango. I mean, that already brings up a whole can of worms, and people are like, I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by John's toes over there.
No more toes. No more toes.
It's like peeking out from the side of the monitor, and it's just like wiggling. And I'm like, I thought for a moment it was Anya like crawling on the floor. I'm like, but she's not here. So I digress. Yeah, and so it's like this idea, like, well, you can't judge tango because tango is so unique to each person, and it's like, yeah, it's an intimate experience that you share with someone, but you can still on the outside look at someone dancing tango, look at someone doing not tango and be like, that's not tango. Like my brother who literally has no background in dancing, he comes out a lot to the milongas with me, and even him with no experience, no filter, is like, I don't know what those people are doing over there, but that doesn't look right. Like, you already can, there's some truth to it to some degree, right? Otherwise, it could be anything. It could be any dancing.
No, but there's a big question. And actually right now, so there's two things.
Wait, what are you saying no to?
Well, there's two big topics that are being discussed right now.
But what are you disagreeing to?
When the escenario dancers came on the stage that won the Mundial, which if you haven't seen the performance, I think you should watch it. Like, I watched it, I was like, that's the winner, right? Because it was beautiful. It was, to me, looked connected. It was tango, and it was performed like at a master level. It was tango. But then afterwards, what happened is all of the conversation was, they're folklore dancers. They don't dance tango. They were given a choreography that they learned, but they're folklore dancers. That's not tango. And on the other end of the spectrum, the dancers, I know I've already said, the dancers that won the Mundial for pista, amazing. Like I could feel their connection through the screen, right? It was just exquisite. And then online you hear that why are we giving pista championship to someone who's dancing choreography? It wasn't choreo. It didn't look like choreo. If it was choreo, like it was incredible choreo, right? So there was
no
a
mind to
big,
those comments.
these were maestros. These are people that have been around a long time. So it goes to our next question. Who decides what is tango?
I think firstly, a lot of those comments are people's preferences that they're stating out loud. So whether something is choreographed or not doesn't change. Just because something is choreographed doesn't make it not tango. In essence, I know we love to think we're improvising all the time, but we actually are not improvising most of the time. We're like following muscle memory patterns. Like, the start of the ocho cortado is going to hit the double time is going to hit at a very specific time and end at a very specific time. Like, we do the same steps over and over again. I mean, sure, sometimes we try to challenge ourselves and change the sequencing, but to truly improvise in the moment takes a lot of skill and practice and thinking. So it's like, I don't know why we fool ourselves into thinking like, oh, tango's so amazing because it's all improvised. I had no idea what was coming. Bruv, you knew what was coming. Like, your body will do the same thing every single time. That's why most teachers, when they come, they always encourage us to try. Nobody does anything on the right. Okay, very few people do anything on the other side, right? Like, how can you even improvise if you don't even use your whole other side of your body?
Well, and even if you do think, even if you're like, no, they improvise.
Yeah.
And you're dancing with the same people over and over and over. The minute you dance with somebody new, you have to turn on a new part of your brain.
Yeah.
Because you have learned, I know John's patterns, right? He improvises, but like there are definitely times where he will break a
Can
pattern.
we show John's face during that moment?
I
Can
don't
we show John's
know.
face?
I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
Improvise,
let me
completely
finish.
unknown to everybody.
Let me finish that statement. I know his patterns, and when he breaks the patterns, usually I'm like, oh, because it's lovely, and actually we're working on that as a couple, right?
I think I forget what behavioral thing this is. I took psychology as a minor, and I still don't remember half the things. But basically, when you have overcome something challenging, you need a justification after the facts to have justified your experience that you went through and your struggle that you went through. And I think sometimes when we've reached a certain stage of like, tango can be quite challenging to figure out. And it's like, well, we've made it. And now it's like, I need to hold on to these things, like the fact that like, this is improvisation. Therefore, like, I'm really good and really cool at this thing. And it's like, okay. So I think so back to your question about the competition. Like, yes, some people were adding whether or not it's choreo or not choreo. Again, that's irrelevant. That has nothing to do with it being tango. Whether or not someone has a different background experience is irrelevant. If they dance tango, they dance tango. You can have two people walking for the first time on the dance floor. You teach them a few things, and there might be an element about how they're moving that is very tango-esque. Even if they don't know too much or understand the vocabulary, it can be a very not sentient. It can be a very kinesthetic or like physical thing that even without the knowledge, you can still experience tango. I think firstly, people will always be salty about who they think should have won and should have not won, and they'll put a lot of different reasons behind it. Just because people are talking about things on social media doesn't mean that, or on any platform, doesn't mean that they need to be taken seriously. So I wouldn't attribute like those comments to feel like, okay, we're having a serious discussion about what tango is or not tango. That's like, I would just say that's just hurt feelings and, let's say expectations that weren't met or whatever. But like all of the maestros that we admire, a lot of the maestros that we admire, we put on pedestals, judge competitions. They train people who compete in competitions. So it's like, you admire the people in the tango space and you think they're amazing, and then you turn around and then you say, well, the competition or anything that judges or tries to add some standard filter to be able to compare tango for a very specific reason, it's like you're so against it. But it's like you don't. People are just like talking out of their without.
Okay, but I think this maybe it's part of it is that in order to teach, you have to have opinions on what is right? And those will vary. There are dialects in tango, right? We've discussed this. It's like as it evolves and branches, like maybe this area had these specific styles of teachers and this area had different. So this area is very salon and this area is milonguero and this area is very nuevo, right? And all of those teachers are like teaching what they believe is right. It's I think maybe few, but very few of them are saying, no, this is all tango, right? But you've seen, we've seen Chicho dance milonguero in a performance, right? People go crazy. They're like, oh my God, Chicho's dancing milonguero, right? We see Noelia Hurtado dance very milonguero for many, many years. But if you watch her dance with Pablo, she danced very differently. And then with her newest partners, she also dances very differently. It's all tango, right? So some of the teachers try to reinforce this for sure because they want, one, they want to market themselves as the right way, right? I think some of it is maybe a mentality that like there's limited pie and they have to show why people should be spending money with them and only them. They should be disciples of only them. And maybe sometimes money doesn't even matter. It's just that that's what they truly believe for them to be able to teach. And I get that. But I also think I think our world is much more colorful and more fun when we acknowledge all of it as tango. And even if we're like, you know what, I like to dance this one specific way, let me actually train in all of these ways because it makes it much more colorful and interesting. And I can see what pieces of technique I can put into the dance.
For me, it's a red flag if a teacher says this is right or wrong. I think it's not about being right or wrong. It's like telling someone like, hey, freestyle or like show me your creativity. And I'm like, that's wrong. Like it can't be wrong if that's your interpretation. But what is a green flag for me is when people are like, okay, this is more or less comfortable. This may be why this happens instead of that. So it's like understanding why things happen and how to make it more comfortable. Like those are the things teachers should be banging their buck on and showing that they're the masters of versus right or wrong because there's so many different styles. And I will say maybe I've just been fortunate enough. Most of the teachers that I do follow, usually they will either say generally this is maybe like the word is like not standard, but they'll say like a neutral way. If you didn't add any other flourishes in it, this is like a neutral way or quite a standard or natural way to do this. Other teachers also will say like this is my tango that I'm sharing with you. You know, and I really appreciate when they say that because sometimes you want to just know the different feels of tango.
Well, or when they say, well, this is my tango, but you need to discover yours.
Yes.
That's my favorite.
Yes. And it's hard because, and maybe this is where also the challenge comes into play. Teachers are teaching what they prefer, what they know and what they prefer. And so that, I think, to the question of like, can tango be standardized in a way, that does muddle the waters a bit because now there's so many things you could do with it that there's no sense of a basic that anybody could agree on.
That's true.
Like, whereas like if you go, and I say salsa just because it's the next dance that I'm next also familiar with. There are different stylings to salsa, right? There's different types of salsa music. There's different, you can have more Cuban salsa, more New York style salsa, but those are like seasonings to the salsa. Everybody can agree that you need to step to the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 basic. But because tango doesn't have a basic step, the basic step is the walk, and the walk can be done at any rhythm, at any pace, at any texture. It just becomes harder to standardize it.
Well, even if you talk about followers, there are maestros that say you should always be on your toes. And there are maestros that say you should always use your heel.
Really? People say on your toes?
Yes.
Like what? Like in recent 5 to 10 years?
Yes.
5 years.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we got I don't hear this anymore. That's why it's so strange.
Yeah. No. There are teachers that say you should have so much forward intention that you're not using your heel. you're using. Yes. Yeah.
Where are these teachers from?
I'll share with you later. We're not going to call people out on this. We are not teaching that way.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's not even saying like, is it tango? Is it not tango? There are going to be different variations, but I think it's more saying like, for me, it's learning and teaching tango that is going to give longevity.
Yeah.
And hopefully not hurt people along the way.
So if this is like, and maybe John, you can also pipe in here, if we recognize the options within tango are so limitless, how then can we, because it's limitless, yes, options can be, but I don't see why there couldn't be space to still standardize tango to some extent, to at least create like a standard of 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 quality for teaching, right? A lot of times like in other dances, in other practices, yoga, gyrotonics, ballroom,
there's a
you
standard
can't
we can
just
learn.
get up and go teach somebody. Like, you can hurt somebody. You have to go through training and be certified. I mean, maybe
There
you can't. I don't
is
know.
a standard.
But there needs to be at least some, like,
No, there is.
I've been
exists.
trained
Yes.
on how to talk to people about this. And maybe there are different, I don't know to what extent there's different schools of training, but at least there's like a training mechanism in place. Like, I don't think we should shy away. I think we should have conversations on how to do that, because A, we're going to improve the experience for the students, which means they probably will stay longer because they're going to feel themselves progressing. And B, we also give materials to people who want to grow their communities but don't have teaching experience. But if there's like a system that you can buy into to train and learn, now you can like confidently go stand in front of a group of people and not just say what you know.
Okay, so there is an organization, and this is like a broader organization that helps different dance genres standardize and develop a test. So this does exist. There is one for Argentine tango specifically, and I do know of maestros that teach a course where if the goal is to prepare you then to take this standardization. I can't remember the name, but I'll give it to you later. I do know, I believe Karina de la Rosa does teach this training and then to prepare you for that exam. So this has happened. And I don't know how many teachers are, I'm assuming if they have done it, that they would then say, oh, I've done this training.
And some do, like some teachers have their methodologies practically patented.
Yes.
And you buy into learning them, and then you can teach their way. But it sounds like the standard is even above that. It's not specific to a teacher style.
Well, and I think it's because, so I have a friend who's in this field of helping develop standards, and like it's a very complicated process no matter what industry you're in, right? So like, and then you take something that's like, it's basically like folklore, right? And not folklore the dance, but like passed down like folklore in the way that tango has been
orally.
But this has happened, so it does exist. At least there has been one organization that has helped standardize what teachers should be teaching. So somebody has put that together.
What do you think, John? Should there be some standardization to tango, and how can we get there?
First of all, thanks for letting me speak.
Shots fired. Okay.
Sorry
to all the John fans out there.
So I think it's a really difficult question for me. Like I like what you're saying about my tango. Like I personally find tango to be quite private. It's definitely like qualities that I like are sort of very individualistic and about it. On the teaching side, yes, I think there are certain basics, not necessarily the basic 8, that I think we can create a structure around, but it's also difficult. So I mean, you talk about pizza, right, all around the world, but I also think that, there's, depending on where you are in the world, it can look very different, right? Whether you're in Italy or in New York or Chicago or various cities in Italy, or like if you go to Japan and it's like, this is crazy, right? But it's you recognize that shape and form as pizza, even though it's not necessarily the same thing.
Or the thing next door. We have a bakery next door. They sell a pizza.
This
but
is not a bakery. Okay, this is a misnomer. What's next door is like a convenience store.
No. They make fresh pizzas.
Okay,
They
let's
have
not
a
let.
3 hours later.
like they have a version that has tomato and mozzarella, and it's pizza, but it's Lebanese, right? So like there are other things that are pizza that maybe we don't even call pizza. And I would even say that probably I might get killed for this, but like Zouk is very reminiscent of tango. Kizomba, very reminiscent of tango, right? So there are
There's
other
similarities.
there's similarities
movement.
in the movement. There are other dances that some people even call lazy tango. There are. All that
Lazy
face.
tango?
For
I've
those
never
who are
heard
watching or who are just listening, Amanda has a face right now.
It's a lazy tango. Okay, but you would never say
saying that
kizomba is tango. You'd say there's similarities, but you never say it's tango because there's a very distinct difference in it, in the music, in the dance.
Sure, and I would say that Zouk is probably a little bit closer to tango. And kizomba has a basic step, or like it has its basic steps. But Zouk is improvised in a very similar way, but without some of the technique of tango, right? Like a Zouk dancer can often pick up tango more quickly because it's a similar way of leading and following. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sorry, we digress, and I took over.
You still took over
John's.
John's
Sorry, babe.
speaking time, but we give you more time to think.
Well, maybe we need to kick this over to a part 2 because we're hitting up on that time. But it also maybe a better analogy is that we were, because recently I had danced with someone that I described as almost dancing like a different dialect of tango, where it was I could recognize the framework was there, but this nonverbal communication I felt was achieving a slightly different result than I normally would expect. It's not something that we teach, right? Like that's not like the lead follow that necessarily we would teach. So I have a hard time imagining that being part of a framework that would apply to us.
Just as standards for our teaching.
Yes.
It's these branches that we're talking about. It's still tango.
Yeah.
It's just different. And I think often when you're in a local community, well, actually, no. If you have a big enough community, you do have different schools of thought. And we do have different schools of thought here, for sure. We have different schools of thought here in DC, which can divide our communities, right? We're all dancing tango, but maybe some groups don't like dancing with other groups because it doesn't feel good because we're not really speaking in the same dialect, if you will. And then you go dance worldwide and you can feel the influence of these different teachers. So like just saying like we're all choosing to teach one way. But I think that there is a consensus, or there should be a consensus on like your posture and like the way you use the ground, what groundedness even means, and right, and where you should be. Maybe there isn't even a consensus in that actually. Because like if you think of Salon and Milangaro and Nuevo, they're very different.
I think it's just like different tools to get a result in slightly different ways. And, one thing I will say that I'm typically proud of in the tango community is that we do encourage people for the most part to learn other ways, right? Because especially as a leader, you have to, well, more so as a follower, you need to adapt to the leader. The leaders don't always adapt, but it's better for them to adapt, but they can get away.
Don't.
They can get away with not adapting. The follower will always try to adapt to them. So yes, even if you learn a basic way of dancing as a follower one way, you still have to be ready to change. And I think that is the piece that can become standardized. It's like, how do you understand how do you understand what the base is and how to adjust your base to different dancers that you meet on the dance floor? Like that could be something that I think we standardize, but we're getting to wrap up. So
I think that's a topic for another day, but we can all agree that we know what tango is. We know that it's a broad definition, and maybe it's more based on connection and the way we lead and follow, theoretically, and that we're just going to go ahead and reject the idea that one is tango and one is not. right? John, any parting words before we wrap this up?
So, I mean, yeah, a lot of parting words. No, but I do think ultimately, like, I very much think that it's very like an individualistic thing. Like it's your own art at the end of the day, right? Like you're dancing, like you control yourself and you have your own interpretation of the music, of the movement, which is going to be unique from anybody else. And anyone who says, wants to put a label on what you are doing is, I don't know that that's necessarily the most valid of opinions, right? It's kind of, it's art, subjective.
My parting words is just like, chill, people. It ain't that serious at the end of the day.
We're trying to have fun.
Like, just have fun. If you meet someone who dances a different style, take that as a sense of curiosity to see how they do it. And can you meet that? Can you meet them at somewhere in the middle, right? Like, that's tango too, right? So, yeah, we got to talk some more about this. But
Yeah.
I'm also, I just want to give a shout out to all of the teachers out there that are trying to find some way to standardize some version of teaching tango because it's so crucial. Like,
Yeah.
we need more training tools and methods and resources if we really want to grow and keep growing our community. It's hard otherwise. It's like hit or miss. Let's leverage the folks who have success, copy those models, and then we can develop our own models over time. But anyways, I
Yes.
digress.
Yes. All right. Well, that's it for this one. I think we'll talk about it more.
Whew.
All right. See you on the next one.
All
All right, see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Staying Grounded. If you like this episode, please subscribe and give us a like. We would love to hear from you in the comments, and we'll see you next time.